Welcome back to the Conservative Commandos. I'm George Landrith with Commandos host today. This is the place the newsmakers go to be heard, and we have a great newsmaker coming right up. In fact, I'm going to introduce him momentarily. I just want to remind you, if you want to hear a rebroadcast of our show today, just check out our websites, ccrsnetwork.com and ccrshow.com. And for you classic rock fans out there, CCR Show does not stand for Creedence Clearwater Revival. It stands for Conservative Commandos Radio Show. So CCR Show. Anyhow, I am very pleased to introduce our first guest today. That's Peter Roff. He is a respected conservative commentator on politics and public policy matters. He's a friend of the show. He's a friend of mine, and he should be a friend of yours if he's not already. He is a contributing editor at Newsweek. He's also a senior fellow at a number of respected conservative think tanks, including one I'm familiar with, Frontiers of Freedom. In a previous life, Peter ran Speaker Newt Gingrich's GOPAC. He was also a senior political writer for the United Press International, and he was a contributing editor at U.S. News and World Report. And you've probably also read his work published in a number of places like Fox News. Today, we've got a piece that was in the Washington Examiner, and of course, with his regular columns at Newsweek. He's also a regular guest at One America News. So I know you've heard of him, I know you've seen him, and I know you've read him. But with that, Peter, welcome to the Conservative Commandos.
Good to be with you, George, as always. Absolutely.
Always enjoy having you on. You're always insightful and interesting, and you always have a take on things that I think is just, kind of a cut above the ordinary take on things. So anyhow, you have a very good article recently in the Washington Examiner, and it's about corn on your plate, not in your tank. Let's talk about that issue a little bit, because it's wintertime. Sometimes fuels things change throughout the year. So what were you trying to get across to your readers in that article?
Well, basically that the high price of gasoline back in the first decade of the century drove what was supposed to be a Manhattan Project to create the production of fuels made from renewable resources, plants, agricultural waste product, algae, and it didn't work. We were promised that we'd be able to make fuel in commercial quantities that mixed with gasoline could be burned in the engine of a car, from switchgrass, from seaweed, from wood chippings and the things that they don't use in the paper making process, and it just didn't happen. Not anyone's fault. Just didn't happen. The problem is that the politicians wrapped the promise of these fuels into actual public policy and created the RFS, the Renewable Fuel Standard, which says that over time, the gasoline or the fuel that goes into our vehicles, our trucks, our cars, even our lawnmowers, our scooters, has to be increasingly made of biofuels, renewable fuel. Well, the only one that works to any degree is ethanol. You can make ethanol from sugar, as they do in Brazil, or you can make ethanol from corn, as they do here in the United States. Now, we didn't plan necessarily to need as much ethanol as we now do to meet the renewable fuels standard, and states have their own standards, because we thought there'd be other things that you could put in, but there aren't. So more and more ground that could be used to plant corn that goes into the food supply, either because we eat it, or it goes into things, or it goes into things we eat, like chickens, cows, pigs, deer, elk, bison. Makes the cost of food go up. doesn't do much to help our engines, and does absolutely nothing to help the environment.
Yeah, you make a very good point about the engine issue, because my understanding is that ethanol is pretty rough on an engine in a way that your traditional fossil fuel or gasoline is not. And so,
well, anybody who's forgotten to empty the tank on their lawnmower in November knows what I'm talking about, because you go out after the first rain in April, and the grass is 4 inches tall, and you reach down and you pull on the rope, and nothing happens
until your arm falls off because it won't start.
You pull on the rope again, and nothing happens. And by the time you've spent enough at the handyman shop that you could have actually just gone to your local big box lawn and garden store and bought a new lawnmower, you're back in business.
Right. Yeah, and my understanding is even on our big automobiles, the fact is our cars won't last as long because of the corrosive nature of alcohol in the fuel as compared to, so, and it also burns, we get lower horsepower out of the same amount and so forth. So, and then you mentioned...
Certainly if you're an occasional driver, if you're somebody who drives every day and goes through a tank or so a week, not as much of a problem. But if you're somebody that only has to go out once in a while, it's the second car, it can have a very, very damaging effect, to the point that some auto manufacturers like Ford are at least suggesting that they're not going to honor damage caused by ethanol under warranty service.
Yeah.
Now, at the same time, President Trump, who firmly endorsed ethanol when he ran for president in Iowa, wants to go to year-round E15 or E85, depending. What that means is it'd be 15% ethanol, 85% gasoline. And that's supposed to produce fewer emissions from automobiles than it would if you were just running on regular gasoline. But in fact, the automobiles are a very small part of the emissions issue.
Right.
Now, whether you believe in man-made or man-caused global warming or not, it is a fact that automobile exhausts emit certain chemicals like carbon dioxide. The car today, if you went out and bought a new car this year, it would, running at full steam, produce fewer emissions than a 1973 Ford LTD sitting in the driveway. That's how much we've done to improve the emissions. Well, I don't know if it's an improvement, but to decrease the emissions on automobiles. The real concerns about particulate matter and what certain people call greenhouse gas, like carbon dioxide, comes from us by breathing, human beings, and it comes from the expenditure of energy to heat our homes in the winter, cool them in the summer, produce things like automobiles and computers and air conditioners and refrigerators and all those things that make life in the first world so much easier than in other parts of the world where economic security and technology have not taken root as they have in the Western world.
Yeah.
So tinkering around with automobiles is sort of like worrying that the faucet's dripping when the bathtub is overflowing.
Yeah, there you go. That's a good analogy. We're up against the clock, so we've got to take a quick break. I want to come back after the break and kind of finish up the thought of your article, because I think you make some very good points. And one point you mentioned, but we haven't gotten to yet, is just how it doesn't really do much for the environment. The thought is that ethanol will be so much cleaner, and it's not. But after the break, we'll get to that. And then I also, if we get chance, I want to hit on your article about Nancy Pelosi as well. Again, more insightful stuff. But we're talking to Peter Roff. He, of course, is our guest today. He's been guest before. He's a friend of mine, should be a friend of yours. But you are listening to the Conservative Commandos. I'm George Landrith with Rick Manning, and we are coming to you on the Conservative Commandos radio network all across this great nation, and carried you now on the also on the AUN TV network in California and Nevada. And if you don't have a broadcast tower nearby, then of course you can still catch us, except for maybe in communist China, North Korea, and Iran, on Al Gore's amazing internet. Don't go away. We'll be right back.
Have you been leasing a property for your business or renting storage space? Are you tired of paying rent year after year? Call the experts at General Steel to own a building at up to 30% off now.
I'd been renting a building and paying someone else's mortgage, but General Steel showed me how I could own a space tailored to the needs of my business and for less than renting.
Call General Steel now at the number on your screen for our current building specials and to price your metal building system today.
My building's the dream I've had since finishing my house 14 years ago. I've been using it for a garage, workshop, and storage area for my tools and equipment, and I can't believe how great it turned out.
The economy is improving and the price of steel is expected to rise. Stop waiting. It could cost you thousands. Call General Steel now to see how you can own for less than you thought. Stop waiting to start your business or expand your operation. Call General Steel now.
Call 877-484-7002.
Everybody wants cheap airfare, but where do you find it? You call low-cost airlines. Their prices are direct from the airlines, and they're so low you can't find these fares published anywhere. They specialize in cheap flights, discount hotel rooms, cheap car rental rates, and great package deals anywhere around the world. Wherever you want to go, they can help you get there cheaply and with a best price guarantee. If you want the lowest prices on your airline tickets or other travel services, call now. That's right, call. That's the only way to get these rates. Experts are standing by 24/7 to get you the cheapest airfare and hotel rates available. So don't wait. Call right now for the lowest travel prices anywhere and for great last-minute travel deals too.
Call 888-431-0562. That's 888-431-0562. 888-431-0562. 888-431-0562.
Friend, do you remember when it felt good to withdraw your cash from the bank to expand a business, go on vacation, or buy a new car? Well, today, withdrawing your own cash has become a very risky business, according to The Secret War, a shocking new research report. I just read it. And folks, I was amazed to learn why banks are now required to spy on us for the government and then report any suspicious or unusual behavior. I suggest you get The Secret War free. Just call the number on the screen, no charge, from the folks at Swiss America. And get this, did you know simply spending cash today may be enough to have you branded as a potential criminal? That's right. The new war on cash is really a war against all freedom-loving Americans. The Secret War is yours free, so call the number on the screen and you can tell them Pat Boone gave you the number.
Welcome back to the Conservative Commandos. I'm George Landrith with Rick Manning. And, if you want to hear a rebroadcast of our show, and I'm sure you will, particularly since if you are just coming to the show now, you've missed part of Peter Roff's interview, you'll want to definitely catch that. So you can do that at ccrsnetwork.com, ccrshow.com, and there you can get all the information. We've been talking with Peter Roff, and just to reintroduce him briefly, he's a contributing editor at Newsweek. He's active in the think tank world as well. He's been involved with media. You've probably seen him, read his stuff at Fox News, seen him on One America News, all kinds of places. But bottom line, we were talking with Peter about an article he wrote this week about putting corn on your plate rather than in your tank, and this was at the Washington Examiner. So, Peter, maybe just to conclude that thought, I would just ask you, in a few sentences or a short paragraph, why, if I'm sitting in the tank filling my car up, I shouldn't be real happy if they're forcing me to buy lots of gasoline that has ethanol in it. Well,
First of all, we're not running out of oil. Secondly, that means we're not running out of gasoline. Thirdly, the environmental benefits to ethanol are minimal. The damage that's caused to your engine is real. The damage that's caused to the food supply is real. The impact on prices is real. And so we've been sold a bill of goods that, while it may be good for certain farmers in Iowa who are getting subsidies from the federal government, is not good for the rest of us. When you introduced me in the last segment, you forgot to tell people that they can follow me on Twitter at Peter Roff or at Peter Roff.
At Roff, R-O-F-F.
Just at Peter Roff, R-O-F-F, yeah.
Right.
And please don't throw a brick with a note attached to it through my window.
Fair enough.
Brick that doesn't have a note attached to it through my window either, but...
Either one. Fair enough. I think that's a fair clarification. Now, you wrote a good article. I really enjoyed reading it in Newsweek, and it was about Nancy Pelosi and the mistakes she's making with the shutdown. And, of course, this week we've had news on the State of the Union and how that relates to the shutdown. So why don't you just give us a quick update on how you see those things and whether you think she's making a mistake, whether Donald Trump's making a mistake. How do you see the dynamics of this, battle?
First of all, Nancy Pelosi needs to understand that Donald Trump doesn't bluff. And Donald Trump is one guy responsible to one guy. Nancy Pelosi is one person responsible to her conference and to the House of Representatives as a whole. And so the State of the Union was scheduled for January 29th. By tradition, since the presidency of Woodrow Wilson, it's been delivered from the podium just in front of the speaker's the speaker's desk in the House of Representatives chamber, because it's big enough to hold all members of the House, all members of the Senate, the ambassadors, the generals, the Supreme, everybody who comes. Big party. Pelosi wrote to Trump and said, because of the shutdown, because I'm not sure we can guarantee your security, let's postpone the State of the Union. Trump wrote back and said, no. I've talked to the Department of Homeland Security and Secret Service, and you invited me for the 29th. They tell me my security is not a problem, so I'm coming on the 29th. Pelosi then wrote back to Trump and said, no, you're not coming on the 29th. So what you're either going to have is Donald Trump marching up to Capitol Hill, being turned away, which is going to make Nancy Pelosi look really, really bad in the eyes of independent voters who hold probably the balance of power in the American electorate, and frankly among a lot of Democrats, and certainly among the Trump base, which among the Republicans is somewhere north of 95%. Or Trump is going to go someplace else, like the U.S. border with Mexico, surround himself with angel families and border patrol and immigrations and customs people and potentially members of Congress and perhaps some border governors, and say, the state of our union is not secure. We have the lowest unemployment rate in decades. Strong job creation, productivity is up, the market is up, interest rates are holding steady, we don't have core inflation, the economy is roaring, but none of that is secure as long as we have a porous border between the United States and Mexico. Not just because people come across that border illegally looking for work, but because people come across that border illegally carrying disease, carrying drugs, carrying counterfeit merchandise, carrying weapons, and with the intent to commit crimes. Whether those are crimes against persons like murder, kidnapping, rape, or they're economic crimes like the sale of counterfeit drugs and counterfeit bags and counterfeit CDs and counterfeit DVDs that are often, we're told by the FBI and the people in the intellectual property movement, used to fund terror groups. It's a bad thing, and I just don't see how the Democrats can respond to that. They've certainly seeded the optics. They can't get up and walk out of a speech they're not in. They can't boo a speech they're not attending. They can't remain seated while Republicans give him a standing ovation if they're not sitting in the same room with the Republicans. So I think she's ceded the optics, she's ceded the field to Trump, and she's pushed this conversation into an arena where Trump is an expert and she's a rank amateur.
Yeah. I think most people just view the State of the Union as kind of, sure, the president, whoever he may be, is going to give a message that his base will like, and in that sense it's partisan. But the event is a nonpartisan event. It's been held forever, and I think the fact that she's going to look like she's canceling it, and people are going to say... And
frankly, George, usually it is meaningless. Usually there's a lot of pomp and circumstance involved, and it's important to the Washington crowd. And for the pundits like me who have to have something to talk about for 48 hours. But for the course and direction of a presidency, reiteration of the same things I campaigned on. Here's what I want to do. Right. Congress, give me the money. Congress, give me the authority. Yeah. Blah, blah. And the president's party says, "Oh, a historic speech," and the opposition party says, "Oh boy, that was a real nose holder." But because of the fight between Trump and Pelosi, this particular State of the Union has been given enormous weight.
That's a fair point.
Because everybody's watching to see who's going to break first. There is a way around an obstinate speaker who refuses to bring something to the floor, and that's called a discharge petition. What that is basically is a piece of legislation, or in this case, the resolution that says essentially, Mr. President, please come to the House chamber on January 29th and give your speech at 8 p.m. or 9 p.m. as was previously scheduled. If they can get a majority of the House to sign that discharge petition, it comes to the floor immediately. So Republicans and sensible Democrats who think they are being damaged by Nancy Pelosi's intransigence can work together. And if they can get a majority of House members to sign this discharge petition, and that'd be 218, so that'd be all the Republicans and a handful of Democrats who may be able to fall back on the "I have respect for the institution even if I don't particularly care for the president" line of argument, then Nancy Pelosi will have been rolled by the members of the House.
Very interesting.
And it will be a major defeat for her speakership.
Yeah. Well, our time is about up, but I did say I'd love to hear, just remind our listeners how they can follow your work.
Follow me at Peter Roff on Facebook, on Twitter, at Peter Roff on Twitter. You can read my columns once a week at newsweek.com in the opinion section. You also will occasionally find me in places like the Washington Times, Investors Business Daily, the Daily Caller, the Washington Examiner, and you can see me once a week on Mondays on the Daily Ledger, on the One America News Network. I also do retirement parties, bar mitzvahs, and children's birthday parties.
Fair enough. Well, thanks for being with us. It was great to have you on the show. It always is, always insightful and always interesting. You're listening to Conservative Commandos. I'm George Landrith.
AM/FM 24/7 Roku channel broadcasts all of our shows on demand. To ensure reliability, we store and stream our content on the same servers as Netflix and Amazon. Our Roku channel is free to use, and anyone owning one of the more than 10 million Roku devices can watch our channel at no cost whatsoever. If you have a television show or are thinking about producing a show, you can be a part of AM/FM 24/7's Roku channel. Watch our great shows on your Roku device. It's free and more reliable than cable TV. Are you stuck with a timeshare? Did you attend the presentation and were seduced and enticed into buying that great vacation and investment? Now you're in the terrible position of trying to figure out a way to get out of that mess. You're not alone. For over 15 years, BuyYourTimeshare.com has been helping people like yourself get out of timeshare ownership. The fact is, there is no resale market. Unscrupulous telemarketers call you and say they have buyers waiting, and the next thing that happens is you give them hundreds of dollars for an ad, and you'll never hear from them again. Another fact is that an identical timeshare to yours is being offered on eBay for $1, and no one is buying it. If you want out of your timeshare, I urge you to go to buyyourtimeshare.com or call them at 877-94-HELP-ME. That number again is 877-94-HELP-ME. Buyyourtimeshare.com. That's buyyourtimeshare.com. 877-94-HELP-ME.
Dish TV is better than cable TV. Here's why. Dish has the nation's lowest TV price, along with an award-winning DVR that can skip commercials, record 8 shows at once, and get access to thousands of movies at your fingertips. Cable simply can't even compare. So the smart choice is to cut the cable and get Dish. Plus, you get all these great TV features, free HD DVR upgrade, free installation, and free movie channels. Say goodbye to cable and get more with Dish TV. 877-290-7764, 877-290-7764. As an added bonus, you can switch to Dish now and receive a $50 Visa gift card. So call now and get Dish TV. Call 877-290-7764, 877-290-7764. That's 877-290-7764. Limited time offer, 24-month commitment and credit qualification required. Cancellation fee, monthly equipment fees, and other restrictions apply. Promotion can change at any time.
You've been leasing a property for your business or renting storage space? Are you tired of paying rent year after year? Call the experts at General Steel to own a building at up to 30% off now.
I'd been renting a building and paying someone else's mortgage, but General Steel showed me how I could own a space tailored to the needs of my business and for less than renting.
Call General Steel now at the number on your screen for our current building specials and to price your metal building system today.
My building's the dream I've had since finishing my house 14 years ago. I've been using it for a garage, workshop, and storage area for my tools and equipment, and I can't believe how great it turned out.
The economy is improving and the price of steel is expected to rise. Stop waiting. It could cost you thousands. Call General Steel now to see how you can own for less than you thought. Stop waiting to start your business or expand your operation. Call General Steel now.
Call 877-484-7002.
Everybody wants cheap airfare, but where do you find it? You call low-cost airlines. Their prices are direct from the airlines, and they're so low you can't find these fares published anywhere. They specialize in cheap flights, discount hotel rooms, cheap car rental rates, and great package deals anywhere around the world. Wherever you want to go, they can help you get there cheaply and with a best price guarantee. If you want the lowest prices on your airline tickets or other travel services, call now. That's right, call. That's the only way to get these rates. Experts are standing by 24/7 to get you the cheapest airfare and hotel rates available. So don't wait. Call right now for the lowest travel prices anywhere and for great last-minute travel deals too.
Call 888-431-0562. That's 888-431-0562. 888-431-0562. 888-431-0562.
Friend, do you remember when it felt good to withdraw your cash from the bank to expand a business, go on vacation, or buy a new car? Well, today, withdrawing your own cash has become a very risky business, according to The Secret War, a shocking new research report. I just read it. And folks, I was amazed to learn why banks are now required to spy on us for the government and then report any suspicious or unusual behavior. I suggest you get The Secret War free. Just call the number on the screen, no charge, from the folks at Swiss America, and get this. Did you know simply spending cash today may be enough to have you branded as a potential criminal? That's right. The new war on cash is really a war against all freedom-loving Americans. The Secret War is yours free, so call the number on the screen and you can tell them Pat Boone gave you the number.
Welcome back to the Conservative Commandos. I'm George Landrith, and as you know, Conservative Commandos are not fake news, and we have a really, really good interview for you here, so I'm excited about it because we're here at CPAC. Lots of things going on. You can probably hear from the ambient noise and the traffic behind us that we're not in the studio, and it's a little different than usual, but it's a lot of fun. So I want to introduce our next guest, Dr. Burton Folsom. He is a distinguished fellow at Hillsdale College. I'm sure you all know, but just in case you don't, Hillsdale College is one of the really great conservative institutions in higher education. We often think about that the academia is this uber liberal group, and they may be in general, but Hillsdale College is actually more interested in the pursuit of truth, not the pursuit of political correctness. So with that, Bert, welcome to Conservative Commandos.
Thank you, George, for having me on.
Absolutely. Now, one of the things that you've done that's very interesting is you've looked at how America is teaching history.
Yes.
So tell me a little bit about that. What's your critique of history the way it's being currently taught?
It's being taught in such a way as to make the millennials much more receptive to socialism than they should be. Socialism has failed everywhere it's been tried. The United States is the classic success story for capitalism. But if you look at the American history textbooks, the bias within those textbooks distorts the achievements of the United States. I'm with a group that www.trueamericanhistory.us. That has an online critique
.us. Okay.
Of one of the worst textbooks. It's called The American Pageant, and The American Pageant undermines the progress that the United States made from the Civil War to World War I with its comments. For example, John D. Rockefeller, you look at him, the first billionaire in U.S. history, made oil cheaply, paved the way for the automobile industry, also kerosene with lighting. But they tell stories here, they say he price gouged. Well, as a matter of fact, he sold the oil cheaper than anybody else in the world. The other thing is, with his money, he was the first billionaire, he gave half of it away to charity. For example, Spelman College is a black college for women. He felt that was needed. He named that college and founded it after his wife, Laura Spelman. He also gave to Tuskegee Institute. The point is, these entrepreneurs were often helping minorities and other groups. Those things are omitted from the textbooks. Instead, a critique of what they do is done in such a way as to promote big government.
Yeah, well, one of the things I always find interesting is there's always the assumption that the only way you can get, I think Ronald Reagan really talked about this, but the only way you can get wealthy is by cheating someone.
Yes.
And Ronald Reagan phrased it this way, that the left can't look at a fat man and a skinny man standing next to each other without assuming that the fat man got fat by taking advantage of and cheating the skinny man.
That's correct.
And it seems to me that's how they teach history.
Right, and so that if somebody is wealthy, he did it by exploiting the poor.
Yeah.
In fact, the wealthy person created jobs, created industry, made the United States so that immigrants would want to come here,
right.
And immigrants then get wealthy off of the jobs they work here and sometimes become entrepreneurs themselves. Andrew Carnegie was the second wealthiest person in the United States under Rockefeller. He was an immigrant, but he got his start here and then gave jobs to other immigrants.
One of the things I think is interesting is, you look at, I'll pick it because of popular culture.
Sure.
Young people will know, they may not know a lot about Andrew Carnegie or John Rockefeller, but they do know about Steve Jobs.
Yes.
Because they probably have a device in their pocket that he created. Now, Steve Jobs got fabulously wealthy. And he didn't do it by coming to my house and sticking a gun in my face and making me buy his products. He just created really awesome products that I wanted. And so I parted with money voluntarily because I decided the product he was offering was worth it to me.
Yes.
And then as a result, he had that transaction with millions of people and became very, very wealthy. But he added value, is my point. And I think that's, generally speaking, there's certainly occasionally you'll hear somebody who games the system.
Right.
But most people who become wealthy provide value.
Yes.
And that's what Rockefeller did.
Right.
That's
exactly.
what Andrew Carnegie did. And it's very
and Henry
frustrating.
Ford, you go on.
Yeah. And the story, though, often is told about how the fat man, skinny man syndrome, where the fat man is that way because he cheated the skinny man, and that's just not the case.
Absolutely. That's well put. Reagan had it on target, and I'm glad you mentioned that, George.
Well, how is it that our, we see with in the current Congress, socialism's made a big, it used to be that was a dirty word. If you called someone a socialist, that was a pejorative, and they would deny it. Just like, how dare you call me that? They may have been, but they wouldn't admit to it.
Exactly.
Now, they're embracing the term, proudly proclaiming their socialism like it's a badge of honor. Tell us why it's not.
Yeah, it's not a badge of honor because socialism fails where it's tried. But one thing I want to indicate is the term robber barons, which was given to the industrialists who helped the United States rise to being the world power. That term was given to them by, of course, I wrote a book, The Myth of the Robber Barons, as a critique of the original book, The Robber Barons by Matthew Josephson. He was supporting Communist Party candidates, and when his book was released in the 1930s, he was with Stalin in Russia helping to promote Russia. The point is that we are, even though historians use that terminology and adopt his ideas, they say, oh, I'm not a socialist or I'm not a communist. They're adopting that terminology. It is failed terminology. If we squeezed out those entrepreneurs, you mentioned Steve Jobs, forget your iPhone.
Right. It changes a lot. I mean, it's hard to imagine that in a very short period of time, I now carry in my pocket a device that's substantially more powerful than the first dozen computers I owned that sat on my desktop and does more things. So, and that's a pretty amazing thing, and I don't begrudge him his wealth. But let me just ask you this. You've said that socialism has failed everywhere it's tried. And I want us to I'm an attorney by trade, so let's define what we mean by fail. Because you could have a business that fails, and it just means people lose money, they don't make money, they're not successful. I would argue that when you use the word it's failed, it's not just that people aren't well off, it's not just that people starve, it's even worse than that. When you say fail, it's like capital F-A, I-L, all caps, bold, underline, flashing red lights, failed. So let's talk about that just briefly.
I was teaching a reading group yesterday in Atlanta, and there was a student in there from one of the colleges who was fleeing Venezuela. He had a button on that said socialism sucks. He talked about Venezuela. I said, well, you from Venezuela, tell us. And he described you're right, it's not a failure, it's starvation. People don't just fail.
It's catastrophic.
Their lives are ended.
Yeah.
You talk about the Soviet Union starving millions of people in the Ukraine to take their products to bolster up the Soviet regime. Yeah. You're talking about millions of deaths by starvation. It's worse than failure.
Yeah, that's what Mao did too. I mean,
that's what Mao did.
It literally, tens of, perhaps as many as 100 million people.
The worst period we went through in the United States history that's possibly even remotely comparable to that is the Great Depression, because we had over 20% unemployment. What is triggering that? The growth of big government. Under both Herbert Hoover, which had a government bailout company, they raised income taxes to the top level of 63%. Roosevelt raised income taxes so that when he died, the tax rate was 94% on all income over $200,000. I wonder why we're still in a depression. If you have 94%, you're telling you get to keep 6 and send 94 to the government. Nobody starts industries. Poverty, 20% unemployment. When we freed the economy up, eventually getting the tax rate down to about 28% under Reagan, took 40 years. We get it all the way down. Then we have the big prosperity surge in the 1980s.
That extended for decades.
Because Clinton wouldn't stop it.
Right. No, that's an amazing thing. We're getting short on time, so I want to ask you if you'd be willing to tell us how we can follow your work, because this is important. Hillsdale's a great institution, but you're doing really important work to analyze history, because I think if you don't know your past, you're not going to have a good future.
You're absolutely right. There's a website, www.trueamericanhistory.us. It has a critique that I wrote of a leading textbook, The American Pageant. Students who are using The American Pageant or a similar book can find critiques of the ideas in that book online at that website. That at least gives them a fighting chance if their teachers are going to promote government intervention and bias against freedom.
Excellent. Well, that's powerful. So it's trueamericanhistory.us. trueamericanhistory.us. Excellent. Well, I really want to thank you for being here today. This is great.
Thank you, George.
Absolutely. This is a special edition of Conservative Commandos here at CPAC. I'm George Landrith, and we're going to sign off, but we do want to remind you, we are on the Conservative Commandos radio network from one coast to the other, on the AUN TV network in California, I understand soon in Nevada, and if that's not enough, we are always on Al Gore's amazing internet.
Have you been leasing a property for your business or renting storage space? Are you tired of paying rent year after year? Call the experts at General Steel to own a building at up to 30% off now.
I'd been renting a building and paying someone else's mortgage, but General Steel showed me how I could own a space tailored to the needs of my business and for less than renting.
Call General Steel now at the number on your screen for our current building specials and to price your metal building system today.
My building's the dream I've had since finishing my house 14 years ago. I've been using it for a garage, workshop, and storage area for my tools and equipment, and I can't believe how great it turned out.
The economy is improving and the price of steel is expected to rise. Stop waiting. It could cost you thousands. Call General Steel now to see how you can own for less than you thought. Stop waiting to start your business or expand your operation. Call General Steel now.
Call 877-484-7002.
Everybody wants cheap airfare, but where do you find it? You call low-cost airlines. Their prices are direct from the airlines, and they're so low you can't find these fares published anywhere. They specialize in cheap flights, discount hotel rooms, cheap car rental rates, and great package deals anywhere around the world. Wherever you want to go, they can help you get there cheaply and with a best price guarantee. If you want the lowest prices on your airline tickets or other travel services, call now. That's right, call. That's the only way to get these rates. Experts are standing by 24/7 to get you the cheapest airfare and hotel rates available. So don't wait. Call right now for the lowest travel prices anywhere and for great last-minute travel deals too.
Call 888-431-0562. That's 888-431-0562. 888-431-0562. 888-431-0562.
Friend, do you remember when it felt good to withdraw your cash from the bank to expand a business, go on vacation, or buy a new car? Well, today, withdrawing your own cash has become a very risky business, according to The Secret War, a shocking new research report. I just read it. And folks, I was amazed to learn why banks are now required to spy on us for the government and then report any suspicious or unusual behavior. I suggest you get The Secret War free. Just call the number on the screen, no charge, from the folks at Swiss America. And get this, did you know simply spending cash today may be enough to have you branded as a potential criminal? That's right. The new war on cash is really a war against all freedom-loving Americans. The Secret War is yours free, so call the number on the screen and you can tell them Pat Boone gave you the number.
Welcome back to the Conservative Commandos. I'm George Landrith. I'm going to do a quick introduction, and then we're going to make sure we get our time with Sam. I'm sure you recognize Sam Sorbo. She is a nationally syndicated radio host, the Sam Sorbo Show. You probably recognize her from movies that she's been in. I think they're not only entertaining movies, but I think they are influential movies in terms of world perspective, one's faith, and so forth. You've probably seen like Let There Be Light or God Is Not Dead. Just really powerful stuff. She's a homeschooling advocate. She's involved in a lot of different causes where she takes her values and makes sure that she stands up for the things that she believes in. So I'm a big fan, and we're really glad to have her.
So it's funny because I just coined a phrase. I'm pro-truth, and it goes all the way back to 4th grade actually. But I won't bore you with that story. That's in my book. But the fact is, I went on a search. I was basically raised in an atheist household as a Jew, and so I knew Jewish culture a little bit, but we actually celebrated Easter and Christmas in the house, even though I went to Jewish Sunday school. It was just sort of a mess. And so basically I was an atheist, and I got a great career. I was modeling, I was traveling internationally, I was just living the life. Life was really good. And I kind of hit a point where I was like, is this it? Because, okay, but, then what? And so I went on a search, and I discovered order in the universe. And where there is order, there must be a creator, because nature doesn't create order. God created order, right? And so that's what led me down my
entropy, disorganization.
Exactly. So that's how I became a Christian, basically, in the broad strokes. And then, of course, when I met Kevin and found out that he was Christian, and he was just my dream come true. He was exactly what I had been looking for. So that's how we met.
I bet you a lot of women felt that way about him.
Yeah, but I was right.
No, you were in the right spot. No,
I went down to New Zealand and I played a princess.
Yeah.
And he actually just tweeted something about love at first sight, and somebody tweeted back, "Oh, is that what it was like for you?" Yes, actually, for us, it was really very much love at first sight.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. No. My point is both you and he are stars, and both you and he are attractive people. So lots of people probably look at you and say, and look at him likewise and say, "Wow, that's awesome." But what I think is great is that the faith was such an important part of that relationship, and it's very cool. I think it's and I like the way it's driven you to be an outspoken activist for the things you believe in.
Well, strangely, when I started a homeschool, and I didn't start homeschooling because of my faith. Faith was very important for me to find a suitable mate. I think it's very important that you find somebody that has a similar worldview, right? And religion is who we are and where we're going. Politics is how we get there. So I was lucky that I found somebody who had a very similar worldview. We're very much alike. When I started homeschooling the children, I realized that faith was very important. And how was I going to pass on my faith? And the fact that we don't pass on faith through our education. What is education if it isn't worldview? Yeah. We've been like hoodwinked into saying, oh, we shouldn't have the Bible in our schools because that's religion. What else is education? Obviously, you want to know numbers and words and reading and writing and all that, but if you're not expressing your worldview, and it's not that we don't have religion in our schools, by the way.
Yeah.
We do. We've just replaced Christianity with human secularism.
Yeah. No, you're exactly right. Let's if we change gears slightly and just talk. The biggest thing now, it seems to be, the soup du jour today, is socialism. It's
right.
The new popular thing.
Right.
And it strikes me that it's pretty antithetical to the idea of freedom. The scriptures.
That's like the understatement of the century.
Yeah.
You're among friends.
Yeah.
Just out with it.
Yeah, but the scriptures, teach that God is the author of liberty. We have a great hymn that refers to, God as the author of liberty.
Right.
That's the reason for Christ, is to provide liberty,
right.
Make us free.
Right.
So I don't think he's disinterested in this political debate between freedom and a lack thereof.
Clearly not. How do you think the last election happened?
Fair point.
That was a miracle.
Yeah, fair point.
So I will say that Donald Trump, in his recent State of the Union, said this will not be a socialist country. And that was really taking it, as he is known to do. He takes the bull by the horns, which is brilliant, but it also gets the bull really ticked off. And so now what you're going to hear from all the Democrats is, oh, socialism. Oh, what's the big deal? Stop talking. Everybody just says socialism. And they want to sort of inure us to the word, which is dangerous. And the problem that we have is that our youth have gone all through public school, government school, learning that socialism is grandpa with candy. It's not. It is a scourge on the world. It is the most dangerous thing. And it is control, and it is a loss of freedom. It represents an entire loss of freedom. So you have the great news is we have Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who is an avowed socialist, spewing the actual socialist rhetoric so that the youth can hear that they're not allowed to have 3 hamburgers a day. Yeah. Now, some of them are going to say, well, I only want 1 hamburger a day, right? But the smart ones are going to say, who's going to tell me how many hamburgers I can have?
Or whether I can own a car someday.
Right? So maybe this entitlement generation isn't such a bad thing after all.
There you go.
It's entirely impractical. And the reason is greed. Because man is selfish. Yeah. So don't think that Alexandria Ocasio, by the way, her building doesn't have public housing.
Right. No poor
she
people
lives
allowed.
She lives in a building that's, right? So apparently it's good for her. It's not necessarily good for you, and she'll decide what's good for you.
Right. I think that's the one thing that you've just hit the nail on the head, that people have to understand, that socialism is just a different way of dividing resources. We divide, in a market economy, we all get to have a say in how we divide resources. I went to go see a movie. That means I put money in someone's pocket. I bought gas today. But I chose to do those things. No one made me. Right. And so in some sense, we're all actors and players in this system. Or we can take that out of your hands and decide that some government bureaucrat gets to decide who gets what.
Right.
And what we find is income inequality is much worse in those systems, because it's the friends of the rulers who have all the goods.
That's our experience. That is our experience. In fact, Thomas Sowell writes in his and if you haven't read Basic Economics by Thomas Sowell, you really should, because it really lays it out very clearly basically 330 million people are better at making decisions on where our resources go than a couple of bureaucrats
with PhDs
situated in Washington, D.C.
Exactly.
Or Moscow, as the case may be. Yeah. Okay, so my book is They're Your Kids, an inspirational journey from self-doubter, that's me, to homeschool advocate, me again. The most recent movie was Let There Be Light. We have another one coming out called Miracle in East Texas, which tells this true tall tale about the East Texas oil strike. I'm very excited about that one, and Kevin is in that one, obviously, also. And of course, I do my radio show, The Sam Sorbo Show, which is on Mojo 50. So go to mojo50.com. You can find me on Spreaker, on iHeartRadio, all the different outlets right there.
Excellent.
Every day. 2 hours a day. Try to shut me up. I just don't shut up.
That's good. I think it's, a
we have
powerful
fun.
Woman with something to say is an important thing.
We have fun, and it's important to have some humor about this because we know who wins.
That's right.
So it's all good. We're just in it. We're just in it to win it.
The question is, whose side will we be on?
That's right.
Yeah, there you go. Well, our time is up, but I want to thank you so much for being with us, Sam. It's great to have you on the show. And I do want to remind our listeners, you're listening to Conservative Commandos. We are broadcast all across this great nation on the Conservative Commandos radio network and on the AUN TV network. And also, if you aren't near a broadcast tower of some sort, you can always catch us on Al Gore's amazing internet.
I saw voter fraud with my own eyes. Now, people say, why didn't you report it to the authorities? Well, they were the ones doing it.
Elkins goes to vote for merit.
The integrity of one man, one vote doesn't apply at the Texas state legislature. There is no way to know if your representatives are voting for themselves.
Department, a Republican, reaches back to vote for Democrat Oliveira. Democrat Matt Reynolds votes for Republican England.
2 out of 3 voters nationwide believe that voter fraud is a serious problem in the U.S. today.
The process is rigged.
Both sides of the aisle are guilty.
Florida now has to tell the Department of Justice whether the state will comply with DOJ's demand to stop purging thousands of people from its voter rolls.
We have the sloppiest election system of any industrialized democracy.
Philadelphia flagged 50,000 duplicate registrations, so just think how many more slipped through.
It's almost impossible to detect. How do you get caught? You only get caught if you confess.
Election corruption is deeply embedded in America. Quote, election fraud is a crime that usually pays, unquote, writes Tracy Campbell in his book, Deliver the Vote, A History of Election Fraud, an American political tradition from 1742 to 2004. In 1742, the first Prime Minister of Britain in the American colonies, Robert Walpole, was forced to resign.
We have a right not to have our vote canceled out by someone who shouldn't be voting, someone who's an illegal alien, someone who's a felon not eligible to vote, someone who doesn't exist. If they vote, they cancel your vote out as much as if you're prevented from voting.
If this is going to be fixed, it's going to have to be a citizen effort. It comes down to, it's the same old question, if not now, when? If not us, then who?
This is huge. This is about the democracy and the principles of the United States of America. People say, but why you? Why you? Why? Well, why not? And if it starts with a fireman, if it starts with a sanitation worker, if it starts with a teacher or a nurse or a caretaker of the elderly, then so be it. It's got to start somewhere. But it's time we come together and fix this problem once and for all.
There is no serious person out there who would suggest somehow that you could even rig America's elections.
To say that it doesn't exist is an outright lie.
Serious allegations of voter fraud, the claims raising questions about the
Commerce Secretary Ron Brown and 32 others were on a military plane that crashed today in a violent storm. There are no known survivors at this time.
The U.S. Army was funded by the evil entity.
I saw voter fraud with my own eyes.
To say that it doesn't exist is an outright lie.
The process is rigged.
People die and fall for the right time.
So it's incredibly important now that we draw a line and say, not on our watch.
Welcome back to the Conservative Commandos, the radio show and now the television show carried on the AUN TV network and, of course, carried everywhere on Al Gore's amazing internet. We truly are everywhere. I'm George Landrith with Rick Manning, who's my co-host. We're the Conservative Commandos. This is the place to be, and this is the place the newsmakers go to be heard. We've got a great newsmaker coming up right now. But before you do that, I just want to remind you, you can always hear more about Conservative Commandos, hear a rebroadcast, or view a rebroadcast. Just go to ccrsnetwork.com and ccrshow.com. I'm very pleased and honored to introduce our first guest today. That is Jimena Barreto. She is the Director of Communications and Grassroots Strategy for Frontiers of Freedom. It's one of the reasons I know her. She's also a friend, quite frankly. And you may not know it, but she's your friend too, because she's a friend of conservatism and of America's system of constitutionally limited government. She's a nationally recognized spokesperson. She's done a lot of speaking on behalf of whether it was Donald Trump during the presidential election, or in some cases just various organizations. Many people realize the value of having someone who, well, she's been an ambassador for America, and because of that, she understands and appreciates our system of constitutionally limited government and how it maximizes individual freedom. And because of her perspective, she has drawn tremendous opposition from the left and many in the media, because after all, she is a Latina and she is willing to support and defend the Constitution of the United States, free enterprise, and the concept that America is an exceptional place. But she grew up in Colombia, and after members of her family were murdered by drug lord Pablo Escobar, she came to America, legally I might add, and she is now a proud U.S. citizen. So with that, Jimena, welcome back to the Conservative Commandos.
Thanks for having me.
It's great to have you on the show. I always enjoy it because you're always very interesting. Now, I know this was a busy week for you, and you were up at the White House. So what's up?
So you guys might not know Ana Paulina from Turning Point. She is created this group called Bienvenido with Abraham Enriquez. And Bienvenido is going to be like the biggest outreach for Hispanics. So we were invited to the White House for a briefing, and then we visited a few congressional and senators' office this week, and we also went to the RNC for a training session with all. And it's crazy because I met Ana Paulina a few weeks ago at an event, and we hit it off because we're so similar. We love the Second Amendment, the Constitution. She calls me. She's like, "Do you want to be the spokesperson for Bienvenido?" She's like, "I think you're perfect. You speak Spanish." So I was like, "Sure." So they had done their launch of their group in Dallas. So they, 3 weeks ago. So literally they had 3 weeks to plan the DC trip. And it was amazing because 800 Hispanics across the country signed up. Unfortunately, they had to turn down a few because the White House could only host 150. So when the media says, "Oh, there's no Hispanic conservatives," this is proof that there is. It was amazing, an amazing turnout. It was great.
Now, we're often told that various groups see the world radically differently. I remember when I ran for Congress, people always ask me, "So what's your platform for women? What's your platform for minorities? What's your, that?" And I always kind of thought that was weird because I thought, well, I think
we're all Americans.
Right. So I guess my question is, how do a group of folks that are, Latinos, how do they see things? Do they have different issues? Or are they also concerned about jobs and opportunity and freedom?
Of course, there is a lot of them. I think the biggest concern is jobs for Hispanics. Yeah. And there is a lot of very successful small business owners that happen to be Hispanic. So I think the biggest concerns are jobs, taxes, and border control. Like, believe it or not, like the people that are here legally and that did it the right way are very concerned about what's going on at the border. And the idea behind the group is go around communities and show them, because the left has brainwashed everyone and put, like, kind of like tells them, the minorities, you need the government to succeed. So it's like our idea is bring them back to conservative values, because Hispanics are faith-based culturally. So that's the idea behind the group.
Well, it makes a lot of sense to me. The other side is spending lots of time trying to explain to them that, like you said, they got to have the government. If without the government, they can't succeed. And also, they spend a lot of time trying to teach them that essentially conservatives hate them, which I don't actually believe. I don't know any conservatives. There may be someone out there. I'm not. It's a big country.
Well,
there's over 300 million, but I don't know anybody who hates Latinos.
No, and in my personal experience, I've been treated better by conservatives than the left. The left despises me. They send letters to the White House to get me fired. And instead of like, like this woman is a single mother, came here the right way, let's celebrate this. This is a win for minorities. But no, instead they're like trying to push you down if you don't behave like they want you to behave.
Yeah, they want you to believe what they believe, basically. I mean, my guess is, the truth is, they're not upset that you're a Latina. They're not upset you're a Latina. They're upset that you're a conservative Latina. And that, it's like, we can't let that happen. No.
But there is a huge misconception, and this is my biggest complaint about the Democratic Party. They put everyone all Latinos in a bucket, and we're all different. Cubans are completely different than Colombians. Puerto Ricans are completely different than Mexicans. We all have, we're all very religious, but like our views are completely different. And I think the closer you get to the border, your views are completely different. But like Colombia is a very conservative country. All my family, because I get on Twitter like comments from people, oh, your family, I bet they're so disgusted with you. I'm like, my family loves President Trump. My brother owned businesses. They love Donald Trump. All my friends back home love the president. So it's just like a misconception, and to put everyone in the same basket.
Yeah, and they do that all the time. I mean, they tell us that if you're a woman, you've got to be a Democrat. If you're a minority, you have to be a Democrat. And the reality is, freedom and opportunity are awesome. And I think that's what conservatives offer. And sadly, sometimes I don't think we always do a great job of explaining it or selling it. And that's one of the reasons I think that you have real value, is because you explain it well, which is probably why they hate you so much.
I think the problem is
they want to shut you up.
We use facts while the left uses emotion. And that's what we need to, we need to play the same game if we want to win at this and keep up the Republic.
We need to tell compelling stories, not tell them that, like when we talk about tax cuts, we probably need to talk about individuals who are able to start a business because of that and be successful, as opposed to giving them a statistic that,
Exactly.
Just statistics are boring. But and that's a good point.
That's why I was talking with Napolina and Abraham this past weekend. Our goal is going to be to show successful minorities that have excelled in United States. And that's how you do outreach. Unfortunately, our party is not good at it.
Yeah, I do think that's one of our weaknesses, because we have a great product to sell, freedom and opportunity. If you look throughout history, people have been willing to die for that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a universal, incredibly valuable commodity, as it were. And I don't feel that as conservatives we always sell it very well. No. So one of the things I like about you, though, is you actually you have a very good way of explaining things that makes them sound attractive, and too often conservatives can come across as just kind of like angry bean counters. So, but anyhow, you're definitely not an angry bean counter, but we're up against the clock, so we've got to take a quick break. And I'm glad you can stay with us to the next segment because there's more to talk about. But just want to remind our listeners, you are listening and our viewers to the Conservative Commandos. I'm George Landrith with Rick Manning, and we are coming to you on the Conservative Commandos radio network, which is broadcast all across this great nation, and also on the AUN TV network. And, of course, carried around the world on Al Gore's amazing internet. Don't go away. We will be right back.
Have you been leasing a property for your business or renting storage space? Are you tired of paying rent year after year? Call the experts at General Steel to own a building at up to 30% off now.
I'd been renting a building and paying someone else's mortgage, but General Steel showed me how I could own a space tailored to the needs of my business and for less than renting.
Call General Steel now at the number on your screen for our current building specials and to price your metal building system today.
My building's the dream I've had since finishing my house 14 years ago. I've been using it for a garage, workshop, and storage area for my tools and equipment, and I can't believe how great it turned out.
The economy is improving and the price of steel is expected to rise. Stop waiting. It could cost you thousands. Call General Steel now to see how you can own for less than you thought. Stop waiting to start your business or expand your operation. Call General Steel now.
Call 877-484-7002.
Everybody wants cheap airfare, but where do you find it? You call low-cost airlines. Their prices are direct from the airlines, and they're so low you can't find these fares published anywhere. They specialize in cheap flights, discount hotel rooms, cheap car rental rates, and great package deals anywhere around the world. Wherever you want to go, they can help you get there cheaply and with a best price guarantee. If you want the lowest prices on your airline tickets or other travel services, call now. That's right, call. That's the only way to get these rates. Experts are standing by 24/7 to get you the cheapest airfare and hotel rates available. So don't wait. Call right now for the lowest travel prices anywhere and for great last-minute travel deals too.
Call 888-431-0562. That's 888-431-0562. 888-431-0562. 888-431-0562.
Friend, do you remember when it felt good to withdraw your cash from the bank to expand a business, go on vacation, or buy a new car? Well, today, withdrawing your own cash has become a very risky business, according to The Secret War, a shocking new research report. I just read it. And folks, I was amazed to learn why banks are now required to spy on us for the government and then report any suspicious or unusual behavior. I suggest you get The Secret War free. Just call the number on the screen, no charge, from the folks at Swiss America, and get this. Did you know simply spending cash today may be enough to have you branded as a potential criminal? That's right. The new war on cash is really a war against all freedom-loving Americans. The Secret War is yours free, so call the number on the screen and you can tell them Pat Boone gave you the number.
Dish TV is better than cable TV. Here's why. Dish has the nation's lowest TV price, along with an award-winning DVR that can skip commercials, record 8 shows at once, and get access to thousands of movies at your fingertips. Cable simply can't even compare. So the smart choice is to cut the cable and get Dish. Plus, you get all these great TV features, free HD DVR upgrade, free installation, and free movie channels. Say goodbye to cable and get more with Dish TV. 877-290-7764, 877-290-7764. As an added bonus, you can switch to Dish now and receive a $50 Visa gift card. So call now and get Dish TV. Call 877-290-7764, 877-290-7764. That's 877-290-7764. Limited time offer, 24-month commitment and credit qualification required. Cancellation fee, monthly equipment fees, and other restrictions apply. Promotion can change at any time.
The AM/FM 24/7 Roku channel broadcasts all of our shows on demand. To ensure reliability, we store and stream our content on the same servers as Netflix and Amazon. Our Roku channel is free to use, and anyone owning one of the more than 10 million Roku devices can watch our channel at no cost whatsoever. If you have a television show or are thinking about producing a show, you can be a part of AM/FM 24/7's Roku channel. Watch our great shows on your Roku device. It's free and more reliable than cable TV. Are you stuck with a timeshare? Did you attend the presentation and were seduced and enticed into buying that great vacation and investment? Now you're in the terrible position of trying to figure out a way to get out of that mess. You're not alone. For over 15 years, BuyYourTimeshare.com has been helping people like yourself get out of timeshare ownership. The fact is there is no resale market. Unscrupulous telemarketers call you and say they have buyers waiting, and the next thing that happens is you give them hundreds of dollars for an ad, and you'll never hear from them again. Another fact is that an identical timeshare to yours is being offered on eBay for $1, and no one is buying it. If you want out of your timeshare, I urge you to go to BuyYourTimeshare.com or call them at 877-94-HELP-ME. That number again is 877-94-HELP-ME. BuyYourTimeshare.com. That's BuyYourTimeshare.com. 877-94-HELP-ME.
Welcome back to the Conservative Commandos. Of course, radio show, television show, thanks to the AUN TV network, and of course the Conservative Commandos radio network, and thanks to Al Gore's amazing internet. We truly are everywhere. Now, I just want to just let you know that you can check out our websites if you want to hear rebroadcast. If you missed the first part of my interview with Jimena, you definitely want to go back and get that. You can get that at ccrsnetwork.com and ccrshow.com. Now, we've been talking with Jimena Barreto. She is the Director of Communications and Grassroots Strategy for Frontiers of Freedom. And as I mentioned, she's a nationally recognized spokesperson, and she does a really good job of making conservatism and freedom and opportunity sound as good as they actually are. And that's important. Now, because she's been effective at that, she's earned some enemies on the left and in the media who really would like to take her down a notch because they'd like to shut her up. They'd rather have people who are less effective at communicating fill her space, and that would suit their purposes. But we are glad that she will not be shut up and that she will not be quiet. So welcome back, and thanks for sticking to the break with us, Jimena.
Thank you.
So this week in the news, there's been some interesting things, and I thought maybe it'd be interesting just to ask you your thoughts on a couple of them. I know that there's some talk about Mueller, whatever, giving testimony to Congress. And I find it kind of interesting because he filed like a 450-page report. Supposedly, that would be everything he has to say. So I'm curious what he's going to say after giving us this 2-year exhaustive report and why they want him. And then this whole hubbubaloo about the tax stuff. So let's just talk about some of this stuff and what's going on there.
It's a witch hunt. I mean, there's multiple people have come and said there's nothing there. The White House cooperated. Government officials went and testified. Everybody has been open. There's transparency. There's nothing there. And they just keep going at it. And now they're upset because the president has the power. If he doesn't want to release everything, he doesn't have to. And I think it's important to not release everything because there is things in there that could affect the national security. We don't know. There has to be sensitive data there. And people are not thinking about that. And they're like, well, they need to show everything and redact. And I'm like, I don't think that's okay.
You're exactly right. There's, a lot of. My understanding is the only things that were taken out of the report that the public can see are things that were either national security based things that were classified, and then there was also some grand jury testimony. And earlier in the show, I kind of explained just very briefly the question of grand jury testimony. There's some very good reasons why Gerald Nadler, the chairman now, who's demanding he voted to keep grand jury testimony secret because there's no real process there. Well, it's just a prosecutor in a room putting on evidence to whomever he wants.
Yeah, and there's nothing. I mean, what is it? Even if they release, what is it going to change? There is no hard evidence that they colluded. You know, when I realized that this was going to be a wish hunt, in 2016, my group, Latinos with Trump, Alone Latinas with Trump, and other Hispanic groups hosted a rally in Miami for candidate Trump at the time. Well, there was a bunch of articles saying that the rallies that our group did were financed by the Russians. And I was just waiting for it to get subpoenaed, because I'm like, this is how ridiculous it is that they're using grassroots groups to attack the president and saying that we were financed by the Russians. That's how stupid it is, this whole Mueller report.
So let me just ask you, because you were running this operation. So if there was Russian money coming in, you'd probably know it.
I will know, of course.
And I'm assuming. So what was the status of the money that you guys had to operate with? Was it coming from the Russians?
No, we didn't get any donors, actually. Everything was self-funded. So it was 6 of us, and we just pay for everything.
Okay.
So we will make signs at our homes. I will print flyers at my home. Everything was self-funded.
And you basically do earned media.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah.
Was earned media.
Right. So no Russian money at all. In fact, the only money was your own money. And it was probably small sums, because I don't think, I know some of the group. It's not like you guys are billionaires.
No, I wish, but no.
Yeah, well, fair enough.
The tax situation is ridiculous. And I actually went on the Spanish media yesterday to talk about this. And the other woman happened to be Colombian, an immigration lawyer, very leftist. And the case that I made, I was like, look, it's not an FAC requirement for him to show his taxes. That's not a requirement. So she tried to compare it to Trump wanted Obama to disclose his birth certificate. I was like, that's where the difference lies. Yeah. You need to be a citizen. That is a requirement. Yeah. But there's no requirement as far as taxes. I didn't vote for him because of his taxes. I voted for him because of results, even because I was sick of the establishment. And even if they release all his taxes at this point, and they show that he had some losses, that's not going to change my opinion of him. He's doing amazing. The economy is at its best. Low Hispanic and African American disemployment is records since Reagan. And not only that, I'm sure you have a CPA or you do your own taxes and you use every deduction that you can have. And there's loopholes, and those are completely legal. Nothing. Even if he didn't pay as many taxes because he had losses, carry-over losses, that's completely legal. So for people to attack him on the taxes is insane. It's insane. It's not a requirement.
No, you're exactly right. One of the things that's become very clear to me at this point, I think that early on when he was running for office and wasn't releasing his tax returns, my thought was, he probably ought to release them just to kind of end the discussion. But I've changed my mind on that now, because it's clear all they're doing is looking for information that they can use to attack him.
Yeah.
So if he lost money, they'll attack him. If he made money, they'll attack him. It doesn't matter. They're just looking for something to savage him over.
Yes. And that's the thing. Now that the Russia thing is over, and then the Stormy Daniels was over, it's like, well, the next thing, let's go back to taxes. It's like they have all these topics. I'm like, well, this is gone. Stormy has to pay him. Let's go back to taxes. It's insane. They have nothing solid to attack him.
Yeah. What? Well, yeah, that's why I think the term witch hunt or fishing expedition apply here.
Hypocritical they are. Al Sharpton owes thousands of dollars, millions to the IRS.
Right.
They don't say anything. Bernie Sanders doesn't pay enough taxes. Beto doesn't either. So, and they're attacking this man.
Yeah.
He's a successful businessman. If you see, he had like 500 companies, and I think it's 8 that went down. I mean, I wish I had that success record.
Yeah.
It's like all these people attacking him, and I guarantee you none of them has businesses employing millions of Americans. And if you go down to the hotel or any of his hotels and talk, I'm friends with everyone at the one here in DC. I talked to the ballet guy, the waitress, and he's like, he's the best boss. He gives us amazing compensations, retirement plans, the best healthcare. But the left is not willing to just walk in there and talk to employees.
Yeah.
They're like, no.
Yeah, it doesn't suit their purposes at all. Yeah. Well, we are running out of time, but before we actually run out of time, I want to make sure I give our viewers and listeners a chance to know how they can follow your work. Twitter, Facebook, the whole 9 yards, Instagram, whatever.
So Instagram is The Republican Chick, and then Twitter is @The Republican Chick. And if they want to follow Bienvenido, the new group too, is @Bienvenido, #US.
Excellent. That's great. I would recommend folks follow you on Twitter and Instagram as well. You always have interesting things. Your Twitter account's a really good one. So, folks, make sure it is it's The Republican Chick.
On Twitter is Republican Chick.
On Twitter, it's
on Instagram is @The Republican Chick.
Okay, fair enough. Well, thanks so much for being with us. It was great to have you on the show. It always is. I need to have you on regularly because you are. You always have a great perspective. So thanks.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. You are listening to Conservative Commandos. I'm George Landrith with Rick Manning, and we are coming to you on the Conservative Commandos radio network, which is broadcast all across this great nation, and on the AUN TV network, and as always, on Al Gore's amazing internet. Don't go away. We'll be right back.
Have you been leasing a property for your business or renting storage space? Are you tired of paying rent year after year? Call the experts at General Steel to own a building at up to 30% off now.
I'd been renting a building and paying someone else's mortgage, but General Steel showed me how I could own a space tailored to the needs of my business and for less than renting.
Call General Steel now at the number on your screen for our current building specials and to price your metal building system today.
My building's the dream I've had since finishing my house 14 years ago. I've been using it for a garage, workshop, and storage area for my tools and equipment, and I can't believe how great it turned out.
The economy is improving and the price of steel is expected to rise. Stop waiting. It could cost you thousands. Call General Steel now to see how you can own for less than you thought. Stop waiting to start your business or expand your operation. Call General Steel now.
Call 877-484-7002.
Everybody wants cheap airfare, but where do you find it? You call low-cost airlines. Their prices are direct from the airlines, and they're so low you can't find these fares published anywhere. They specialize in cheap flights, discount hotel rooms, cheap car rental rates, and great package deals anywhere around the world. Wherever you want to go, they can help you get there cheaply and with a best price guarantee. If you want the lowest prices on your airline tickets or other travel services, call now. That's right, call. That's the only way to get these rates. Experts are standing by 24/7 to get you the cheapest airfare and hotel rates available. So don't wait. Call right now for the lowest travel prices anywhere and for great last-minute travel deals too.
Call 888-431-0562. That's 888-431-0562. 888-431-0562. 888-431-0562.
Friend, do you remember when it felt good to withdraw your cash from the bank to expand a business, go on vacation, or buy a new car? Well, today, withdrawing your own cash has become a very risky business, according to The Secret War, a shocking new research report. I just read it. And folks, I was amazed to learn why banks are now required to spy on us for the government and then report any suspicious or unusual behavior. I suggest you get The Secret War free. Just call the number on the screen, no charge, from the folks at Swiss America. And get this, did you know simply spending cash today may be enough to have you branded as a potential criminal? That's right. The new war on cash is really a war against all freedom-loving Americans. The Secret War is yours free, so call the number on the screen and you can tell them Pat Boone gave you the number.
Dish TV is better than cable TV. Here's why. Dish has the nation's lowest TV price, along with an award-winning DVR that can skip commercials, record 8 shows at once, and get access to thousands of movies at your fingertips. cable simply can't even compare. So the smart choice is to cut the cable and get Dish. Plus, you get all these great TV features, free HD DVR upgrade, free installation, and free movie channels. Say goodbye to cable and get more with Dish TV. 877-290-7764, 877-290-7764. As an added bonus, you can switch to Dish now and receive a $50 Visa gift card. So call now and get Dish TV. Call 877-290-7764, 877-290-7764. That's 877-290-7764. Limited time offer, 24-month commitment and credit qualification required. Cancellation fee, monthly equipment fees, and other restrictions apply. Promotion can change at any time.
The AM/FM 24/7 Roku channel broadcasts all of our shows on demand. To ensure reliability, we store and stream our content on the same servers as Netflix and Amazon. Our Roku channel is free to use, and anyone owning one of the more than 10 million Roku devices can watch our channel at no cost whatsoever. If you have a television show or are thinking about producing a show, you can be a part of AM/FM 24/7's Roku channel. Watch our great shows on your Roku device. It's free and more reliable than cable TV. Are you stuck with a timeshare? Did you attend the presentation and were seduced and enticed into buying that great vacation and investment? Now you're in the terrible position of trying to figure out a way to get out of that mess. You're not alone. For over 15 years, BuyYourTimeshare.com has been helping people like yourself get out of timeshare ownership. The fact is there is no resale market. Unscrupulous telemarketers call you and say they have buyers waiting, and the next thing that happens is you give them hundreds of dollars for an ad, and you'll never hear from them again. Another fact is that an identical timeshare to yours is being offered on eBay for $1, and no one is buying it. If you want out of your timeshare, I urge you to go to BuyYourTimeshare.com or call them at 877-94-HELP-ME. That number again is 877-94-HELP-ME. BuyYourTimeshare.com. That's BuyYourTimeshare.com. 877-94-HELP-ME.
Hello, conservatives. We're glad you could stick with us through the break. I'm George Landrith, and but I have some important things to talk about, so we're going to do that. But I'm like I said, welcome back to the show. We're glad you're here. This is, of course, the Conservative Commandos radio and television show, carried on the AUN TV network, carried on the Conservative Commandos radio network, and carried everywhere on Al Gore's amazing internet. So just glad you stuck around. We've got lots more to talk about. I want to remind you, if you want to hear a rebroadcast or view a rebroadcast, you can do that by going to our website, ccrsnetwork.com, and it's all there, and you can find it all there, so I hope you'll join us. One of the things I want to talk about, I do a lot of work at Frontiers of Freedom. It's a think tank, and so I want to talk about some of the issues that I've been working on recently, because they are important issues. And the first one would be this recent Qualcomm decision that came down out of the Northern District of California in the Ninth Circuit. And Northern Virginia of California gave the Federal Trade Commission and Huawei, a Chinese company, an enormous victory just a couple weeks ago with this antitrust lawsuit that they filed against Qualcomm. Now, I want to make it clear, her decision, if you read it and you understand what you're reading in terms of all the legal mumbo jumbo and so forth and the processes involved, her decision violates the law. She throws out existing law entirely that's not recognized only in the United States. So it's the U.S. law, but it's so accepted that most of the globe accepts it as well. Certainly the developed economies have some recognition of property rights and the concept of intellectual property. She throws it all on its head, says, never mind, I don't care what the law is. I'm a judge. I have a lifetime appointment, and I know better. And because she understands the process that she can be overturned, she wrote her opinion very carefully so as to give, in her mind, her crazy, whacked out, loony decision the best chance of surviving once other judges review it. And so it's written, when you read it, as an attorney at least, I can tell you, this decision was written and done in a way so as to protect it from being overturned, as opposed to it being based on the law, the Constitution, and the rule of law. None of that there. None of that there. I also want to call out, quite frankly, the FTC, which I believe has become a rogue organization. Now, I understand there are a number of people in the FTC who serve the nation well, they do their job and so forth. But there is an element left over from the Obama administration on the FTC that is serving not the interest of the American people, and certainly not consumers, which is their job, but instead they seem to be serving the interest of the communist Chinese government. Let me just explain why this matters. In America, if you're dealing with the Ford Motor Company or Qualcomm or Apple or any other company that we have, it could be GM, it could be GE, McDonald's, you're not actually dealing with the US government. You're dealing with a company. That company is its own entity. And you don't actually, the people who run it might be Americans, but it's not run by the American government. That's not how things work in China. That's not the way things are in China. If you're dealing with a Chinese company, you are in fact dealing with the communist Chinese regime. Everything is an extension of the government's role to dominate the world. So Huawei is a company that is essentially trying to work its way into becoming a leading technology innovator. And so, of course, the Chinese, of course, steal intellectual property from people. They do all kinds of things. They subsidize, they do, everything, you name it. And they want very much to knock Qualcomm off of its perch as really the nation or the world's leading innovator when it comes to chips that are used in the mobile world. And your iPhone, whatever, if you've got an Android device, all of those are made these smart devices that can do internet stuff and do all the amazing things you can do besides just place a call because of a chip that Qualcomm's developed. And they're developing the next generation of that chip that will even be more powerful, even more amazing, and that will be not only faster, but will just connect so many different things and enable you in so many ways if you choose to participate in the Internet of Things. So it's an amazing step forward. But the Chinese want to be that chip maker, not because they want to make a lot of money serving us or providing us with great innovations or service, but because they want to be at the epicenter of what's going on. Because we've seen in things they've developed in the past, they always create a back door. Because that back door gives them power. It lets them spy. It lets them watch in on what we're doing. It also gives them the ability to put an on-off switch on anything. So imagine that America has things that use 5G technology in our Defense Department. Let's suppose our soldiers are communicating, or our devices that they're using, all of that has a 5G component to it. And it will. The Chinese would be in a position to turn things off, to slow them down, do whatever they want if we let them do it. Qualcomm doesn't play that game. They're honest purveyors, and part of the American system is you just produce the best product. So bottom line is, it makes no sense for the FTC to go after Qualcomm and try to cut them off at the kneecaps in an attempt to help Huawei and a Chinese company. That's crazy. Imagine if, this week we're talking about D-Day. Imagine what it would have been like if America had used the power of government to attack the people who are building those landing craft, the airplanes, the other things, and instead tried to benefit, let's say, German companies like Messerschmitt or something else. That would have been treasonous. It would have been outrageous. And yet that's, quite frankly, to be perfectly blunt, that's what the FTC is doing. That's what Judge Lucy Koh has done. I personally believe that there needs to be something done at the FTC, because when we talk about it being independent, we wanted it to be independent from political pressure. We didn't want it to be independent from the law. We didn't want it to be independent from the Constitution. We didn't want it to be independent from basic common sense or decency. And that's the same thing with judges. We want them to be independent, so they're not politically, so that if you're on trial, if you're unpopular, the judge feels the need to find you guilty simply because you're unpopular. We want them to be independent of that pressure. We do not want them to be independent from the law. Lucy Koh has violated her oath of office. She has violated the law. She has violated the Constitution. She's a rogue judge, and she ought to be removed, because we cannot simply have judges of this ilk in our country. The rule of law dies with people like that. That judge is a violator of the rule of law. And I would argue that there are at least, there's at least 2 members of FTC that are of the same exact ilk. These are people that are Obama holdovers that basically are trying to change the law and create the world, part of the Blame America First crowd, part of the people who say America's the problem. You know what? If you think that's true, just wait until the communist Chinese government has control. Just remember Tiananmen Square. Remember those sorts of things. In America, when you speak out against your government, unless Obama was in charge, maybe the IRS comes and audits you and things like that. But tanks don't roll over top of you. Not even in Barack Obama's world. So bottom line is, I am very, very frustrated because the idea that we would have American companies, American judges, American commissions trying to give the advantage through unfair means, through illegal means, through unconstitutional means, to give the advantage to a Chinese company that means us harm, to me, is outrageous. Like I said, I don't think the analogy I used about a company going after going after American companies to benefit Messerschmitt, the company that built their aircraft, their war aircraft, fighter planes, bombers, etc., during World War II, the Germans, that would be okay. That person in history would be a villain. And I would argue to you that Judge Lucy Coe is a villain, a legal villain. She's just, anyhow, I'm very frustrated with this, and I hope that we can make some hay about this, because we've got to get this turned around. This cannot happen. It will be very bad for America if we basically take the legs out from under an American company and then basically give the business to the communist Chinese. But my time is up. Sometimes the clock just gets away from me. But you are listening to Conservative Commandos. I'm George Landrith. My co-host today, Rick Manning. We are coming to you on the Conservative Commandos radio network, the AUN TV network, and always on Al Gore's amazing internet. Don't go away. I'll be right back after these messages.
AM/FM 24/7 Roku channel broadcasts all of our shows on demand. To ensure reliability, we store and stream our content on the same servers as Netflix and Amazon. Our Roku channel is free to use, and anyone owning one of the more than 10 million Roku devices can watch our channel at no cost whatsoever. If you have a television show or are thinking about producing a show, you can be a part of AM/FM 24/7's Roku channel. Watch our great shows on your Roku device. It's free and more reliable than cable TV. Are you stuck with a timeshare? Did you attend the presentation and were seduced and enticed into buying that great vacation and investment? Now you're in the terrible position of trying to figure out a way to get out of that mess. You're not alone. For over 15 years, BuyYourTimeshare.com has been helping people like yourself get out of timeshare ownership. The fact is, there is no resale market. Unscrupulous telemarketers call you and say they have buyers waiting, and the next thing that happens is you give them hundreds of dollars for an ad, and you'll never hear from them again. Another fact is that an identical timeshare to yours is being offered on eBay for $1, and no one is buying it. If you want out of your timeshare, I urge you to go to BuyYourTimeshare.com or call them at 877-94-HELP-ME. That number again is 877-94-HELP-ME. BuyYourTimeshare.com. That's BuyYourTimeshare.com. 877-94-HELP-ME.
Welcome back to the Conservative Commandos. Of course, now it's not just a radio show, it's also a television show, thanks to the AUN TV network. And of course, even if you're not somewhere where the many broadcast towers exist for radio and television, you can catch us all over the world on Al Gore's amazing internet, because we truly are everywhere. I'm very pleased and honored to introduce our first guest today. He's a friend of the show. In fact, he used to be one of the co-hosts of Conservative Commandos, and he's a friend of conservatives, and I'm very proud to claim him as a friend of mine, J.D. Gordon. He's a former Pentagon spokesman who served under both Secretary Donald Rumsfeld, switching my consonants there, and Secretary Robert Gates. JD has been a career Navy public affairs officer and a retired commander. He also served on 3 Republican presidential campaigns as a full-time senior national security and foreign policy advisor, both during the 2012 and the 2016 election cycles. Herman Cain, Mike Huckabee, and Donald Trump. He's also served as a senior fellow and advisor to numerous think tanks and foundations based in Washington, D.C., and you've probably seen him on Fox News, read his stuff in the Washington Times, Daily Caller, The Hill, you name it. He also is everywhere. So with that, JD, welcome back to the Conservative Commandos.
Hi, George. It's great to join you today. Thanks so much for having me on the show.
Absolutely. You know, this week, a lot has been happening in Venezuela. It's been a big story. Some people were not that interested in talking about it, I guess. I noticed early on, CNN had an interesting segment where they had Senator Bernie Sanders, Mr. Socialism, on, and they weren't asking about anything in their split screen they had going on, where people were being run over and hosed and rubber bullets shot them, etc. So it's kind of interesting. They didn't ask him a single question about that issue. They just talked about the things, avoided the topic. But aside from the fake news people, the reality is it's a big news story. So why don't you fill our listeners into what's really going on there and what the bottom line are? I mean, we got lots to talk about, but I'm just going to start open in a broad way, and you take us where you want to go.
Well, thanks so much, George, for the opportunity to discuss this very important topic in our hemisphere. It is the biggest security challenge to the United States and our allies in the hemisphere. And what's going on is a power struggle between the regime of Nicolas Maduro, who was the successor to Hugo Chavez. Hugo Chavez, of course, came to power 20 years ago, and he passed away a few years ago of cancer. Nicolas Maduro succeeded him. When he took power in the late 90s, I was actually in Venezuela in 1999, just after he came to power, and it was a rich country. Venezuela has the world's largest oil reserves, and it was a rich country, the richest one in the region at the time. Now, it's one of the poorest because of socialism. Socialism destroys wealth and it destroys countries. So since Hugo Chavez came to power 20 years ago, over 4 million Venezuelans have fled the country because now they have tremendous shortages of basic staples like milk and meat and even toothpaste and toilet paper, because what happened is Hugo Chavez put a lot of price controls on goods and he nationalized industries there. So basically what he did is he made it very cheap for the poor to eat steak every night, which is great if you can eat steak every night. However, the cows cost money, cattle cost money. The ranchers couldn't make a profit by selling the beef. So what would happen is that the Venezuelan government would make up the shortfall with oil money. So when oil was at $150 a barrel a few years ago, life was good because the Venezuelan government could give the dairy farmers and the cattle farmers and you name it, anyone who was producing something, even beer, the beer distributors, they could make up for the shortfall by just giving them money. Well, when the oil market tanked around the 2015 time frame, oil went down to about $50 a barrel. So then the Venezuelan government couldn't afford these subsidies anymore, and then the people who had the means of production went out of business. And instead of just giving away cattle for free or almost for free and it costing money, these entrepreneurs went to Miami or Spain or Colombia or Brazil, followed by the masses. So there have been millions of Venezuelans who have left their country because of socialism. So there's a power struggle now with Juan Guaido, who's the interim president. He's been named the interim president, and he's been recognized by the United States and our allies as the interim president because he's the head of the National Assembly, like their Congress. He was fairly elected by the National Assembly as the leader, and Maduro was not fairly elected because his government rigged the elections. Of course, that's what they do. So it's a power struggle, and the United States is trying to make sure that democracy is restored to Venezuela and freedom is restored to Venezuela because the refugee crisis is destabilizing the region.
Wow. Well, this is a lesson we learn over and over as we look at history. Margaret Thatcher, of course, says, socialism sounds great until you run out of other people's money. And it sounds like the other people's money they ran out of was the oil money, and then the bottom fell out. And an economy really only works when things are self-sustaining. That's a long-term plan, and that's how we do it in the United States. That's how other successful countries do it. But people like Bernie Sanders think that they're smarter than that, and they can figure out how to do things. And we see, as in Venezuela, doesn't work out in the long run that way.
No, it doesn't. And Venezuela also has a lot of help from countries that don't have our interests at heart, specifically Russia, Iran, and China. They're all propping up the Maduro regime. Russia is the top arms supplier to Venezuela. I remember when I was a Pentagon spokesman in the last 4 years of the Bush administration, one big concern we had for security in the Western Hemisphere is that Russia was making 100,000 AK-47s in Venezuela under license, and so Venezuela was arming paramilitaries. Venezuela is really very much a narco state, a criminal narco state that's state-sanctioned. So even if you remove Maduro, you still wouldn't fix the problems because the corruption with narco-terrorists is so ingrained with paramilitaries right now that it's a very difficult thing to fix. Also, Russia sent a plane full of military technicians there as advisors to train the Venezuelans. China is also acting in a destabilizing way for Venezuela. They've given billions of dollars of loans and grants, not even investments. When I'm talking about actual loans and grants of money directly to the Venezuelan government, so it props them up and it makes them do China's bidding, because long-term China also is a regional rival, and it's a global rival for the United States that competes worldwide against us. Also Iran. Iran is another nefarious actor. Iran has had Hezbollah, its terror proxy, Lebanese Hezbollah, operating in Venezuela, and Iran has trained these colectivos, these motorcycle gangs, to go and mow down civilians, just like the Iranian regime mowed down civilians in 2009 during the Green Revolution, killing protesters, peaceful protesters, right on the streets with rooftop snipers. Well, the Venezuelan version is colectivos, these groups of motorcycle gangs, essentially, that support the corrupt regime, and they go and they physically shoot and run over peaceful protesters in Venezuela. Well, they're trained by the Iranian military forces, the besieged paramilitaries, just like the Iranians do against their own people. Well, the Iranians are in Venezuela with Hezbollah and paramilitaries to train the Venezuelan paramilitaries. So there's a lot of extra-regional forces. Ambassador Bolton today had mentioned that the Cubans are also propping up Nicolas Maduro. Ambassador Bolton, of course, the national security advisor now to President Trump, said that if there were about 20,000 and 25,000 Cubans who'd go back to Cuba and stop providing security support for Nicolas Maduro, he'd be out by midnight. That's very true. So you see Russia, Iran, China, and Cuba all propping out the Maduro regime against the United States and against our allies, because at the core, Venezuela has a Bolivarian revolution that Hugo Chavez championed, that Maduro has been the successor for. The Bolivarian revolution wants to turn capitalism on its head. It wants to turn a U.S.-led global order on its head, and it wants to kind of live the revolution that the Castro brothers started in Cuba, and that Che Guevara was the standard bearer for it. It's a very left-leaning, very social.
JD, we're up against the clock here, so we've got to take a quick break, but I want to continue this conversation because you really are an expert in this topic, and this is very timely, so I appreciate you sticking with us. But you are listening to Conservative Commandos, and of course we are broadcast all across this great nation on traditional radio broadcast towers and on the AUN TV network, and also on Al Gore's amazing internet. Don't go away. We will be right back.
AM/FM 24/7 Roku channel broadcasts all of our shows on demand. To ensure reliability, we store and stream our content on the same servers as Netflix and Amazon. Our Roku channel is free to use, and anyone owning one of the more than 10 million Roku devices can watch our channel at no cost whatsoever. If you have a television show or are thinking about producing a show, you can be a part of AM/FM 24/7's Roku channel. Watch our great shows on your Roku device. It's free and more reliable than cable TV. Are you stuck with a timeshare? Did you attend the presentation and were seduced and enticed into buying that great vacation and investment? Now you're in the terrible position of trying to figure out a way to get out of that mess. You're not alone. For over 15 years, BuyYourTimeshare.com has been helping people like yourself get out of timeshare ownership. The fact is there is no resale market. Unscrupulous telemarketers call you and say they have buyers waiting, and the next thing that happens is you give them hundreds of dollars for an ad and you'll never hear from them again. Another fact is that an identical timeshare to yours is being offered on eBay for $1 and no one is buying it. If you want out of your timeshare, I urge you to go to buyyourtimeshare.com or call them at 877-94-HELP-ME. That number again is 877-94-HELP-ME. Buyyourtimeshare.com. That's buyyourtimeshare.com. 877-94-HELP-ME.
Welcome back to the Conservative Commandos. This, of course, radio show and television show now, thanks to the AUN TV network joining the Conservative Commandos radio network, and of course, always Al Gore's amazing internet. We've been talking with J.D. Gordon, but I want to remind you, if you want to hear a rebroadcast, if you missed any portion of the interview with J.D., you can watch or view that by going to ccrsnetwork.com or ccrshow.com. J.D. Gordon is a former Pentagon spokesman. He served under Secretary Donald Rumsfeld and Secretary Robert Gates. He also served his entire military career in the Navy. He retired as a commander. He's been working on presidential campaigns, most recently in President Trump's campaign. If we get time, we might go a little into some of the troubles that caused you since the witch hunt and so forth, because that's also been in the news, JD. But we've been talking about Venezuela, and you gave us a very good rundown of what's going on in Venezuela. I guess my question might be is, what do you think are some things we could do to help that situation? I don't think the average American wants to go to war for any extended period of time, but I'm sure there's things we can do well short of a major mobilization that might not only promote America's interests, but provide greater stability in the region, and at the same time perhaps even help the Venezuelan people in the process.
Well, absolutely, George. That's a brilliant question. What we have to do is keep up the pressure with sanctions, for instance, on Nicolas Maduro and his inner circle. A lot of them are already sanctioned. We have to keep up the pressure so they can't feel compelled to travel around the world and spend the Venezuelan people's money just on their own enrichment. So sanctions, we need to keep that up. We also have to work closely with our partners in the region, like Colombia, like Brazil, like Chile, like Peru, countries that are seeing the bulk of the refugee outflows. In Colombia, we're talking about 600,000 people or so, which is very destabilizing for a country the size of Colombia to have that many Venezuelans. Brazil's also been being destabilized, and so we need to work with them to ensure that we have a unified front and pressure Maduro to step aside and isolating him from world markets, for instance, and ensuring that we have economic and diplomatic and, if need be, military pressure. I don't think we need a war in Venezuela, just like we didn't need a war in Iraq. But there are some things we can do to keep the pressure up on Maduro, particularly supporting our friends and allies in the region.
That makes a lot of sense. There are, when you're a superpower, there's lots of things you could do. I mean, you could even, for example, I'm not saying we should do this. I might ask you, what do you think? But, having an aircraft carrier in the region sends a strong message to other interlopers like Cuba or even Russia that we also take this place seriously and they might not want to interfere so deeply. Maybe it wouldn't work. But my point is, not so much that we should do that, but there's lots of things short of engaging in a full-fledged war that you can help send signals and let people know kind of what's acceptable behavior and what's not.
Right. President Trump was talking about a possible embargo of Cuba. Certainly that's something that he wants to keep all options on the table, but also basically getting tough on Iran's backers. On Venezuela's backers, including Iran, including China, including Russia, including Cuba. So to the extent we could squeeze these regimes that are backing Nicolas Maduro's regime, that's helpful as well. So it's helping our allies and also squeezing the allies of Venezuela that can help.
That makes a lot of sense. This week we've had the Attorney General before Congress kind of testifying about the Mueller report and his review of it and so forth. I know that you at different times have been involved in this, much to your displeasure, not because you did anything wrong, but just because you had the audacity to work on Mr. Trump's campaign. I mean, how dare you?
Yeah, I know, George. It was terrible what happened to me and to many of my colleagues. About 50 Trump associates have been before the special counsel and various congressional committees. It's punishment, really. And you see that punishment now being meted out against our Attorney General, a man who should be very well respected. He served as the Attorney General for George H.W. Bush as well, and you see how he gets treated by members of Congress. It's absolutely horrible. In my case, I was the campaign's Director of National Security, and I was rewarded with 5-figure legal bills, 3 years of defamation in the national media, death threats, stalkers. I had to file 4 complaints with the FBI Cyber Crimes Unit against some of the worst people stalking me. It was just horrific. And not only that, I was in consideration for a senior administration post after President Trump won, and that all went up in smoke with Trump-Russia, because since I had encountered Russian Ambassador Sergei Kislyak, along with over 50 other ambassadors to the U.S. out in Cleveland during the GOP National Convention, that was blown up in the media as a secret meeting. So I shook the Russian ambassador's hand one morning after I gave a speech and walked out into the crowd of ambassadors, and he was one of the people who shook my hand. And later on that evening, there was a networking reception, which was called a networking reception. I ran into him at the buffet line, and we chatted for a few minutes over chicken satays. So the national media reported this as 2 secret meetings. Oh, wow. So my name and picture were flashed all over the media, CNN and MSNBC, and the New York Times and Washington Post, and I was treated like a villain, like a war criminal.
Right.
So my name was scrubbed from any list. No one's going to nominate me for an ambassadorship or anything else if they think I'm going to be indicted, and that's the way the mainstream media made it sound. It was horrible the way I was treated. I was a Navy commander, so I served 20 years in uniform for our country overseas, 10 years or overseas out of that 20, and I was treated like a war criminal, George.
Right. I mean, it's not like you, for example, accidentally on a live mic was telling, a Russian diplomat that after the election you could be more flexible.
Yeah, I know. Well, I know, George. Well, what happens is Barack Obama is basically protected because almost all the legacy media is to the left, so they protect their own. Yeah. And the legacy media like CNN and MSNBC, they work in concert with the New York Times, with the Washington Post, and government leakers to get information from investigations, from felony leaks, to basically break bottles over the heads of people like me and my campaign colleagues every day. They were breaking stories about Paul Manafort or Carter Page or George Papadopoulos every day from felony leaks, and the media would spin these tales into a pretzel. So I had felony leaks committed against me too, a couple, not that many, but sometimes they ended up on the front page of the Washington Post.
Right.
Defamed nationwide. It's horrible.
Yeah, that is. I'm glad that that is probably now behind you. At least I hope it is, and I hope that our listeners, loyal Conservative Commandos listeners, want to know where they can follow your work, catch up with the things that you're thinking and saying and writing. What are the best ways for people to be up on all things J.D. Gordon?
Well, I'm on Twitter, so Jeffrey_Gordon, and I'm still on One American News. I have a weekly segment. It's typically Wednesday or Thursday, so it's 9 p.m. at Tipping Point, so they could tune into One American News. That would be great. And also my benefactor for my legal bills for the 2017-2018 iteration was Michael Caputo, a dear friend of mine. He paid my 5-figure legal bills the first time around because of all these investigations. And he has a GoFundMe page, Michael Caputo does, a legal defense fund. And so if people want to contribute to his legal defense fund, that helps because he was able to pay my 5-figure legal bills out of the kindness of his heart because he raised so much money through GoFundMe.
Well, I really appreciate not just what you've done recently, but your 20-year career of serving the country. Appreciate your expertise. Appreciate you being a good friend to America and to conservatives and to anybody who cares about the future of this country and freedom. So thanks so much for that.
Thank you, George. God bless you. It's always great to join you on the show. And thanks for having me speak at your panel last year. That was great as well at the Capitol Hilton.
Absolutely. And we will have you on again. You're a knowledgeable man who speaks in an authoritative way and is very enlightening. But remind our listeners, you're listening to Conservative Commandos. I'm George Landrith with Rick Manning, and we're coming to you on the Conservative Commandos radio network, which is broadcast all across this great nation. And also now you can catch us on the AUN TV network as well. And of course, we are always on Al Gore's amazing internet.